Okay, well, good evening, everybody. I'm so glad that not everyone in the country has got load shedding right at the moment. I hope that not too many of you will disappear during the evening, that you'll have enough battery life to actually see the evening through. But if load shedding does strike, we are recording the evening, and so you will be able to go back and listen to this evening if you do have to miss out. So it's called Welcome to the October webinar. And tonight we're going to be looking at how to look after a sick child and when to call the doctor. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lynn Bluff. My background is a nursing sister and a midwife and a childbirth educator. And really, I'm passionate about giving people informed choices, evidence-based birth, knowing your options, and tonight just helping you along the way, because sad but true, all babies at some stage do get sick. And it's a good idea to know a little bit about what you should do, when you should do what, and hopefully not panic too much along the way. Thanks to Jason, Tammy, and Seth behind the scenes, that hopefully everything will go smoothly. We really appreciate their time and their input, as well as we really appreciate our sponsors. Without them, we wouldn't be able to have a really nice webinar like we are having, and a real great thanks to our two main sponsors who tonight are Flow Baby and Future Life. In case you don't know us at Baby Talk, we have a wide range of information to actually offer you, and really hope that you will take up all of these offers that we have got available for you. We've got the Expectant Mother's Guide magazine. It is in print form as well as digital form on expectantmothersguide.coza. You can download the magazine on the Expectant Mother's Guide app, both from Google Play and from the App Store. You can also download it on the Expectant Mother's Guide Journey app, and that will give you a whole lot more information and not just the magazines themselves. We've got the Digital to Mummy newsletter. Basically, we know that mums and dads want to read off the internet, but are you sourcing really good websites to get your information? Because when it's not your field of expertise, it really is quite difficult to decide whether you're reading off a really up-to-date, good evidence-based website, or one that really contains a whole lot of fake information. So we send a newsletter that directs you to different websites with interesting articles, and you know that those websites are good, reputable, evidence-based websites, and you can get some really great information up there. We do consults on birthing options and informed choices. We also run these thoughtful childbirth 3 monthly webinars for pregnant mums and dads. And our next webinar is going to be on prematurity and what it entails. And that's going to be on Wednesday, the 10th of November from 7 to 9 on Zoom. The bookings are open. You can book at thoughtfulchildbirth.coza, and that will be the launch of the Prematurity Awareness Week. So really, we're going to be doing lots of special things that evening. So do come and join us, because it's going to be about all things premature. So if you're pregnant, you ever thought about your baby being born prematurely? Or in your mind, does that only happen to others? Right? Wrong. So come and learn about prematurity and the journey it entails. We'll look at understanding prematurity and how to mimic the womb environment in the neonatal unit, which is really, really important. And then we'll be able to tell you where to find help and support for your premature journey. So we look forward to seeing you in November as well. In December, we're going to be looking at going back to work and breastfeeding, and that's on Wednesday, the 1st of December. This is just a reminder about the feedback form at the end of the evening to receive your certificate of attendance. And it'll say, I know when to call the doctor. Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritties of this evening. And really tonight is about giving you some very basic information. It's about teaching you to think logically with some common sense and to actually ask yourself the correct questions so that you know what you're dealing with, how to look after your child going forward, and when you should actually go and see a doctor. Our program for the evening, we'll be looking at baby poo, noses, fevers, colds and flu, ear infections. We'll have a refreshment break around 8-ish. We'll be looking at burns, vomiting, safe sleep, falls, cuts, poisonings. If we get through the whole lot, we'll be really flying through the evening. But yeah, we'll get through as much as we can in the time we've got available this evening. Okay, so let's look at the scenario. It's late at night, generally late at night and over a weekend, a public holiday. Your baby is sick and you and your partner start to panic. You start to ask yourselves, should we call the doctor? Should we go to the emergency room? What is wrong with my baby? Am I reacting enough? Am I overreacting? And these questions just absolutely boggle the mind. Now, most parents have been in this situation before and struggled with these questions. And sometimes it is really hard to know how sick your baby is and whether it's serious enough to go to the doctor at 2 in the morning. Now, while you should always feel comfortable calling your pediatrician or your GP, whether it's 11 a.m. or 11 p.m., this webinar will hopefully help you determine when to call and when you can actually wait and what you can do to treat the problem in the meantime. So let's look at baby poo. Oh my word, I have a surprise for you, says your little one. It's poop. Yeah, how do we deal with this? Oh my goodness, these nappies come and they go. And it's amazing how much time parents spend inspecting what's in a baby's nappy. You tend to worry about your baby's poo. Is it the wrong color, the wrong texture? Is he pooing too often or not enough? Okay, and actually it's amazing how much this baby's poo can actually tell you about your baby. So what's normal for your baby is going to depend on how old he is, whether he's breastfed or bottle fed, and whether he's started solids or not, because all of those things are going to influence what actually comes out of your baby. So now meconium is a baby's first poo. Okay, it's really dark green, black in color, sticky, profuse, and quite a mission to actually clean off those delicate little bottoms. And what meconium is, it's actually bile, mucus, amniotic fluid, dead skin cells that have actually collected in your baby's intestines while this baby is in utero. So babies don't poo while they are in utero under ideal circumstances, but their bowel is full of meconium, and soon after birth, babies are going to poo. If a baby actually poos during the pregnancy while that baby's in utero, it's often a sign that your baby is in distress. Okay, you know the saying, I'm poop scared. What is that really saying if we dissect it? It's saying, I'm so scared I've pooped myself. Okay, and that's exactly what has happened to your baby while it is in utero. It is got very, very stressed and it's past the meconium. And only if your membranes have ruptured, then you actually know that that baby has pooped, because the amniotic fluid that actually drains out is no longer clear, but it is actually greenish, dark green in color. And we know this baby has been stressed at some stage during pregnancy or when you're in labor. So this meconium should ideally be passed within 12 hours after birth. And this process is speeded up by your baby drinking colostrum. Okay, the more colostrum that goes in, the quicker that the meconium is going to be pooped out and cleared from that baby's system. Because colostrum and breast milk actually have laxative properties in it. And so the more that your baby takes of the colostrum, the more that this baby is going to actually poop, which is really a great sign. I know that you won't be pleased to have another dirty nappy to change, but it really is great when everything is working correctly as it should. Then we get this breastfeeding poo. Okay, by the second day, your baby's finished with this meconium, it's moved onto a greeny color and then onto a bright mustard yellow color. And this breastfeeding poo is not an unpleasant smell at all. Okay, it's slightly sweet, it's very loose in texture, and it's grainy at times, or it's got curds in it. Okay, little bits. And it is very, very liquid with these pieces of curd in it. And that is normal for a breastfed baby. Okay. Some moms might be worried that their baby has diarrhea because it's a runny poo, but actually remember this laxative effect, and it's perfectly normal to have this loose runny poo that is bright yellow with little bits of curds in it. For a baby that is being fed formula, it is a different story altogether. Now, lots of babies strain and cry a bit when they poo, and that doesn't mean to say there's a problem. And really what we're going to look at is what the consistency of this baby's poos are. Are they soft and easy to pass? And then there's no cause for concern. Now, a baby that is on formula, its poo is bulkier in texture than a breastfed baby. And this is because the formula milk can't be digested as fully as the breast milk. It's pale yellow or yellowish brown in color and much more strong smelling and a bit more offensive to actually change this nappy as opposed to a breastfed nappy. Bottle-fed babies are more prone to constipation than breastfed babies. Again, going back to the fact that breast milk has a laxative property in it and formula doesn't. Okay. If your baby is starting solids, okay, those poos can vary depending on what you're actually feeding your baby that day. If you've given your baby carrots, the next nappy could be bright orange. If it's had peas, it could be bright green. If it's got fiber-rich food such as raisins or baked beans, they can pass straight through the baby and end up in the nappy in the form that they were eaten in. If you give your baby bananas, okay, it looks like they're tiny worms in his poo, okay, and those are just those fibrous parts of the banana that we're hardly aware of. But when you feed this small baby banana, okay, or, you know, obviously, you know, 5-6 months when we're looking at giving this baby solids, okay, it's going to have these little bits of fiber until this baby is older and actually able to digest this fiber more efficiently. Then we come to constipated poo. Now, let's really look at this, what is important. What makes a baby have a constipated poo is that the poos are hard, dry little bollikies. Okay, not the fact that your baby is pushing, going red in the face and straining and looks as though it's constipated and can't pass anything. Babies often turn bright red in the face and push hard when they are doing a poo. The reason is they have to learn to use the correct muscles to actually push this poo out. And so in this process, they push in the face, they strain, and all the rest of it. So the bright red face and the pushing hard and the straining has got nothing to do with a baby being constipated. It's what comes out in the form of hard, dry little bollikies, okay, that says this baby is constipated. Remember, the breastfed babies can't become constipated because of the laxative properties in breast milk. So what then does cause constipation? If that baby's on formula feeds, it could be incorrect mixing of the feed. If your baby has a fever, if your baby's dehydrated, basically with a fever, dehydrated, changes in the fluid intake, basically there's not enough fluid to actually make that poo soft, and it actually makes it hard and dry because that body is needing to absorb all the moisture that it's in and around. Okay, so it's very, very important to make sure that babies get adequate fluid intake. And if you're up in Gauteng at the moment where it really is exceedingly hot, we need to make sure that not only ourselves drink a lot of water and stay well hydrated, but we need to make sure that our little babies, our toddlers, etc., actually everybody needs to make sure that they are taking enough fluids. A change in diet can lead to constipation, and certain medications can lead to constipation. So if a baby is constipated, really it's important to increase that baby's fluid intake, as well as the amount of fiber in the diet. If he's old enough and on solids, give him pureed prunes or apricots, and that can certainly help everything on its way. On the other extreme, we have diarrhea when poo is very runny. We're pooing more often or passing larger amounts than normal. And it can also be quite explosive, or when it really just spurts out of this baby's bottom. Again, if you are breastfeeding, your baby is less likely to suffer from diarrhea because the breast milk has antimicrobial properties in it. It prevents babies getting sick. And so it really is unlikely that your baby will have diarrhea when you are breastfeeding. Formula-fed babies are more prone to infection, which is why it's so important to sterilize equipment, particularly in the beginning when these babies are really little. So if your baby has diarrhea, we need to realize that maybe he has got an infection like gastro, but it could equally be that we've just given them too much fruit or too much fruit juice because of all the sugar in it. Okay, we can actually cause this diarrhea, and this baby actually isn't sick at all. Perhaps it's a reaction to medication. And then a common one with the diarrhea is that they've had a sensitivity or an allergy to a food that they have eaten. How about a green poo? I mean, I ask you, is this something to worry about, or is green poo acceptable? Now, when a baby is jaundiced, they can have green poos, and that's fine. Formula-fed babies, that the formula is fortified with iron, that can also cause a green poo. A green poo in a breastfed baby may indicate a food sensitivity, or it could actually mean nothing. If mom eats a lot of salad or green foods, it can also affect the baby's poo color if she is obviously breastfeeding. And a green poo can be a sign that your baby's taking in too much lactose, which is the natural sugar found in milk. Can be the side effect of medications, and then it can also be the fact that perhaps your baby's got gastro. And we will go through probably in the next couple of slides that we mustn't just be obsessed about what's in the nappy, but we actually need to look at this baby as a whole. And so we'll discuss this again shortly as to whether this baby has perhaps got gastro, or maybe it's just nothing. If there is black poo, this could be a result of taking iron supplementations or iron fortified formula. Blood in the poo, okay, bloody poo can indicate constipation, and that as that hard poo is actually passed, it can cause little abrasions and there's fresh blood in the poo. It can also be caused by blood in breast milk, which is usually due to the fact that the moms might have a cracked nipple, so that baby's actually taking in blood from the cracked nipple, passes through a system, and there can be some blood in the poo, which is really not a problem at all as far as the baby goes, but the mom needs some help to sort her cracked nipples out, and that will end the problem. And otherwise, probably the most common cause is that there is a food allergy, and you get little bits of blood and sometimes a little bit more because it is just upsetting the whole gastric system, this allergy. Okay, so here's the logic part, is that we don't want to just look at the nappy. Sure, we need to know what's in the nappy, and we need to know what is normal, what is abnormal, but we also need to have a look at the baby at the same time. Is your baby happy and content? So if your baby is happy and content, and it hasn't had a change of personality, it's really the same laid back, happy, smiley little fella, and he's now got a green poo, it probably means absolutely nothing, no problem at all. Whereas if your baby has had a nappy with a green poo in it, and your baby is fractious and crying and doesn't want to feed and is miserable, then perhaps it's a gastro, because this baby is saying it's not just the green nappy that is the issue. It is the fact I'm no longer a happy baby. And so that's where the logic comes in. Don't isolate looking at one aspect of your baby, but actually look at your baby as a whole, as well as what is in the nappy. Okay, and if there are just a couple of specks of blood in your baby's nappy, it's nothing to particularly worry about. But if there is a whole lot of bright red blood, like when you cut yourself, that's a whole different ballgame. Okay, so let's look at this baby in a logical fashion. All right, so hopefully that deals with poos, and we actually understand what is normal and the deviations from the normal, but actually there can be issues as well. Next, we are going to look at snotty noses, runny noses. Okay, now, one of the most important things is to realize that a baby needs to breathe through their nose, okay? If you think about when this baby is feeding and latched onto the breast, okay, the mouth is closed, that baby still needs to breathe. So it is very important that a baby has a clear nose and nasal passages, okay? And small babies don't automatically open their mouth to breathe like we would if our nose is all snotty and blocked. And so we really need to actually make sure that this baby stays with a clear nose. If there's a bit of clear fluid, it's not particularly a problem, and you can see there are various snot suckers, okay, for want of a better description, and that, although it sounds and really quite disgusting to actually use, they really are marvelous contraptions, okay, to relieve that baby of a snotty nose. They can't blow it, and if we take all this runny fluid away, they can breathe so much better. We need to make sure that the little tips of those bulbs are actually soft so that we don't actually damage the inner linings of that nose and cause a blood nose or anything like that. But those are marvelous things. Some of them come with bulbs, some of them come with a plastic tube at the end that the parent actually sucks it, so you can actually control the vacuum that is being used to extract this fluid. If this baby's snotty runny nose is green, it generally means that it is infected and there's an infection going on that needs to be sorted out. Again, whether it's a blocked nose, okay, that is equally as distressing for your baby because they need that clear open nose to actually feed and breathe easily. One can always use saline or a salt water solution to help soften the gunk that is caked in that baby's nose when it is blocked. But there are some wonderful solutions on the market, and one of those is Flow Baby, and so I'm going to hand over to Edith Smith, who's the managing director at CS Health, and she's going to just tell you a little bit about Flow Baby and how it actually works and how you actually use it.
Good evening. I'm Edith Smith. I'm the Managing Director for CS Health, and it's wonderful that I have the opportunity to speak to you guys today. CS Health is a South African company specializing in nasal health, And we pride ourselves on providing solutions based on the latest research that makes breathing easier and therefore makes life easier. Today, I'd like to share some of this information with you, and I hope it'll make your life a little bit easier, even when your baby is sick. I wonder if you knew that babies are what they call obligatory nose breathers. This means that they only breathe through their mouths when they're crying. This is why it's so important for your baby to have a clear nose. A blocked nose could make your baby particularly unsettled at sleep time, and feeding can be tricky. While feeding, your baby's mouth is sealed around the nipple or a teat, and the air has to be breathed through the nose. So even a slightly blocked nose can make feeding difficult and make your baby unsettled. It's important for baby's general well-being and comfort to have a clear nose. It's therefore a good idea to use Flow Baby before feeding and sleeping to thin and clear nasal mucus. When a baby is sick, a blocked nose can even lead to a drop in oxygen levels. Recent research showed by using Flow Baby nasal spray, it increases oxygen saturation within 5 minutes in sick infants, and this improvement was sustained over a 50-minute period. Although Flow Baby is gentle enough to be used as early as newborn, it's clearly remarkably effective. This is why Flow Baby should be part of your everyday eat, play, sleep routine and an essential item in mom's nappy bag to ensure your baby can breathe easily. Flow Baby is a gentle micromist that does not traumatize your baby, unlike harsh aerosolized type sprays. The nifty bottle is designed to use the latest technology to ensure that Flow Baby can be administered at any angle, even when the baby is lying down. It's much easier to tilt the bottle than it is to tilt the baby. It's quick and easy for mom, dad, and carer to use before feeding and sleeping. This ensures a content baby and ultimately a happy mom. I would like to talk more about the benefits of Flow Baby, but more specifically while feeding. Many babies under the age of 12 months have some degree of reflux or colic. We spoke about why it's important for a baby to have a clear nose while feeding, but it's about more than just not having an unsettled baby. Parents don't always realize that a baby might swallow more air while feeding if their baby has a blocked nose. The excess stomach pressure from air bubbles can force acidic stomach content up the esophagus, causing pain, reflux, and even aggravating nasal congestion. The solution is to use Flow Baby before feeding to ensure the baby's nose is clear. Flow Baby nasal spray, or you can use the drops, helps thin mucus and washes it away. It clears the baby's nose effectively to enable good feeding and sleeping. Flow Baby is actually a lot more than just a normal salt or saline solution. Flow Baby contains extra minerals required in the nose, and therefore it resembles normal physiology. This makes Flow Baby highly effective in clearing a baby's nose, yet natural enough to be used every day. The fact that Flow Baby contains these extra minerals is part of the reason why the clinical research states that it's better to use Flow Baby instead of just a normal salt solution to wash the nose. Flow Baby is a gentle, metered micromist, which means the baby is not traumatized by a harsh spray and is free of harmful chemicals and preservatives that could sting and burn their little noses. Flow Baby is gentle yet effective, and with the convenience of it being able to administer it at any angle, it can easily form part of the baby's daily routine. One often associates superior quality products like Flow with higher cost. One of the benefits of Flow Baby is that it's very cost effective, and that is also important that the metered micromist means there's no wastage, and you get about 100 sprays out of the bottle. When pregnant and whilst breastfeeding, there are not many products that can be safely used for a blocked nose. Flow Saline Plus is the ideal solution for blocked nose during pregnancy and whilst breastfeeding. Flow Saline Plus is our natural solution containing extra minerals that are required in the nose and may be used as often as required. It is highly effective at clearing a blocked nose, yet a gentle formulation so that is preservative-free and isotonic, and there's no stinging and burning in your nose. Flow Saline Plus is also cost-effective, and the metered spray containing more than 200 sprays per bottle. I really hope that based on the evidence I shared with you today, that you will use Flow Saline Plus for your blocked nose while pregnant and breastfeeding, And the Flow Baby will be an essential item in your nappy bag and part of your everyday eat, play, sleep routine. And to keep handy, to clear your baby's blocked nose if they're not well. Please feel free to contact me on 082-450-1981 should you have any questions. You're welcome to visit our website on cshealth.co.za. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We would love to hear from you. Many thanks. Good.
Okay, I am sure you found that very interesting and enlightening, and it certainly is something that is very, very helpful to have in your nappy bag without a doubt. Let's find. One, let's try it again. Aha. Good. Okay, let's move on to something that's really, really common, and that is a fever. Now, probably the first fever your baby will experience will be after the first lot of immunizations at 6 weeks of age. And yeah, one needs to actually be prepared and know what to do. Okay, so fever is not an illness. Fever is the body's natural response to a bacterial or a viral infection. It's the baby's immune system that is actually kicking in to fight that infection, and the result is that there is a fever or a high temperature. So where do we take a temperature? We can take a temperature under the arm, we can put it in the mouth or in the bum, a rectal temperature. And really, as parents, and unless there is a specific reason, we will not do a rectal temperature. I'm sure you wouldn't like a thermometer stuck up your bum, and so why would you want to stick it up your baby's? Okay, so really, if you've got a ordinary thermometer, one can take it under the arm. For the older kiddies, you can take it in the mouth. Now, normal temperature is anything from 36.5 to 37.2, and that is the normal range, okay, of a temperature. There are different types of thermometers. There are mercury thermometers that we've described that you can do under the arm or in the mouth. There are digital thermometers, there are thermoscans, there are ones that actually you can just put in the ear, and within seconds you actually get these digital readouts. So yes, that is a very, very easy, non-traumatic way of finding out your baby's temperature. Don't try to assess your baby's temperature by touching. You know, where do we go? We touch hands and feet, okay? And in little ones, their circulation is not as well developed to their extremities. And so you touch the hands and the feet and they're always going to appear cool. And so we don't want to try and ascertain whether this baby is feeling too hot or too cold by touching particularly the hands and the feet. So a fever is classed as anything above 37.5 degrees, and it can vary right up to about 40 degrees when it is really very nasty indeed. Now, we need to make sure that the thermometer actually stays in the right place for the right time, and depending on which thermometer you use, okay, you need to keep it there for a different length of time. Some thermometers actually have a timer on and they beep when they need to be taken out, generally about a minute. If you've got a regular mercury thermometer, you would hold it under the arm for a couple of minutes. And the other ones, the thermoscan, you just do, you know, a quick reading and you get it immediately. All right. You need to clean the thermometer before and after use. And if it's a mercury thermometer, don't put it under the hot tap. Okay, we want it to be washed under the cool tap. Otherwise, the mercury is going to go up and be very high and hard to get down. Okay, so when should you seek medical attention when a baby has a fever? If that baby is less than 6 months old and has a fever, it needs to be looked at. If they have had a fever for more than 72 hours, obviously, if we said that the first time your baby is likely to have a fever is after those immunizations. So that is very, very common. That is what is likely to happen. One doesn't need to go running off to a doctor or a hospital if your baby gets a temperature that night. Okay, because we are expecting a normal outcome after routine vaccinations is that they can develop a fever, and we just need to know how to treat it and see it through. And generally, it won't last for longer than sort of 24 hours or so. If that baby has a fever plus a rash or any other signs of illness that are concerning, it's a good idea to go and let your little one be seen, or if it's constantly wheezing or coughing. Okay, it's not just a plain fever that needs to be controlled and in time your baby will fight that infection, but these are symptoms that your baby actually has got something a little bit more severe. Again, is your baby excessively cranky, fussy, irritable? Has your baby had a personality change? And that is probably, you'll hear me say it umpteen times this evening. If your baby's had a personality change, we know there is something wrong. If your baby has a fever and your baby is still happy and feeding nicely, we don't need to be anxious about it to the same extent that if your baby is really miserable. The other thing is if your baby is excessively sleepy or lethargic or is really not responding well and just wants to sleep, okay, again, that is a sign that things are not great and we need to take it further. All right, so here's my slide. Has your baby had a personality change? Or is your baby the same sweet baby as usual, but just has a fever? Okay, so now my baby has a fever. So what do we do now? Really, the logic is that we want to cool this baby down. Okay, we can undress this baby, just leave a nappy on for, you know, practical reasons. Otherwise, you and your baby will be covered in pee and poo, and that is nasty on its own, let alone when you're dealing with a fever as well. So you're going to undress your baby, cool it down, and even if it is in midwinter, okay, and cool, we need to cool this baby down and not wrap it up. We need to give a dose of paracetamol. Okay, so whether it's Panada syrup or Calpol or Nurofen or something like that, we need to give this baby some medication to bring this temperature down. And along with that note, it's very, very important to have something in your house before you bring your baby home. So while you're pregnant, make sure you go and get one of these bottles of Panada syrup or Calpol or, you know, whatever you fancy, that actually when your baby does get a fever at 2 in the morning over a long weekend, you know that actually there's no need to panic. It's in the cupboard and I can give my baby a dose straight away. We can also cool baby down by evaporation. Okay, we can use tepid water, and that is lukewarm water. You put this lukewarm water on this baby, and this baby will lose some of this heat through evaporation. We don't want to put cold water on this baby or put this baby in a cold bath, because all that is going to do is to shut the blood vessels down on the surface and in the extremities. And so to the touch, your baby will be cooled down, but centrally inside, your baby is actually really very, very hot. So we want this to be a slow process. And so we put lukewarm water on this baby and let this baby actually cool down by evaporation. To put a fan on, get that air circulating around this baby, the air around your baby cooling down. Also, give your baby something cold to drink, okay? If they're old enough, if they're only breastfeeding, then feed them, that is fine. But if they're a little bit older, you could give them something cold to drink, cold water, so that you're actually cooling them down from the inside as well. Or give them an ice lolly to actually suck. That will help cool them down and actually help sweeten the time that this is actually to sort this baby out. The reason that we want to cool this baby down is that some babies actually are prone to febrile convulsions. So they will actually have a fit because their temperature is so high, and nobody ever wants to see their baby have a fit. And so it really is a good idea to actually, if you see that your baby is got a fever, that we treat it. We don't leave it untreated, or we don't leave it to see how high it can go, but we actually try and bring that temperature down and keep it down. And with these medications, we give a dose, and probably in 4 hours' time, you'll need to give another dose, and, you know, for a few repeat doses. It's not going to just take one dose to actually bring the temperature down, okay, because your baby's body is actually fighting this infection. And so we'll need to bring this baby's temperature down until it's finished fighting this infection. So how do you give this medication? Yes, it is in liquid form and it is really not too bad tasting. The easiest way I find to do it is to use a syringe, okay? Please, without the needle, okay? We don't have any needles on, but it is a way to actually accurately measure the correct dose for that baby's age and weight. And you draw it up, you make sure that there aren't any air bubbles in the syringe like this lady is doing with the red syringe that is turned vertically, that you can actually push the plunger, make sure there are no air bubbles, and then your baby is getting the correct dose. Very few babies are going to lie like this cute little one with a pink syringe and just take it. You're generally going to have to hold them and encourage them a little bit more to get it in. If they really are wonderful kids, they will suck on it and get the idea, and it's not too terrible as meds go to get that down. But if you are needing to squirt it into that baby's mouth, don't squirt it down the throat, okay? Because if you hit the back of the throat, they're going to gag and vomit, and it's going to be a very, very unpleasant experience for your little one. And so you would actually squirt it into the side of its cheek, and then encourage them to swallow and not spit it out. And hopefully most of it goes down and stays down. All right, so one of the things to actually highlight, we said you need Panado or Calpol in the house before you have your baby. The other thing, and it really, really is important, that that you actually do have it. The other thing is to explore where you live and the 24-hour pharmacies around you. It is always a good idea to know where they are. And just to add on that note, there are very few private hospitals that have a 24-hour pharmacy within it. I remember not too long ago needing to go to a casualty one evening, and you know, the regular pharmacies are closed, and you think, oh well, that emergency unit will definitely have Panado or Calpol for this little one. And instead I saw them give this parents a script and say, oh well, you can get it in the morning from the pharmacy. Well, that's not going to help at 2 in the morning when your baby actually needs some medication now. So don't assume that these hospitals are going to hand out medication, or you can even go and buy medication because the pharmacies are generally closed. So again, it's really, really important, number one, to have some in the house, and secondly, to know where there is a 24-hour pharmacy in your area. Okay, we then come to colds, okay, the common cold. Now, children can develop as many as 8 to 10 episodes of colds every year before they reach 2 years of age. I mean, that really sounds totally drastic, and it breaks one's heart to see these little beings actually with colds. Now, the common cold occurs due to viruses that cause inflammation of the membranes that line the nose and the throat. Now, there are 200 odd viruses that can cause the common cold. Rhinoviruses are the most common type that cause a cold, and typical cold symptoms are a mild fever. They've got a runny or stuffed up nose. They're sneezing, they're coughing. They've got a mild sore throat. They've got a loss of appetite. They're feeling fatigued. Okay, it really is just a miserable baby, and you can all identify with it, because when you have a cold, you equally feel as miserable. So when do we go to the doctor? If this little one has a cough that is causing choking or vomiting, if their breathing is if they are breathing rapidly or they're finding it difficult to breathe, and if they have thick or colored discharge from the nose for more than 10 to 14 days, and if they wake up in the morning and one or both eyes are stuck shut with that dried yellow pus. Okay. And if they seem to be sleepier than usual, they don't want to feed, they don't want to play, they're very fussy, they're having that personality change that we say is really important to look out for, that is the time to go and seek some attention. In babies less than 3 months of old, immediate attention is warranted unless it's the fact that they've just been given their immunizations. But otherwise, little ones shouldn't be getting a fever, shouldn't be exposed to infections. So trouble breathing, vomiting, fever, and we need to do something about it. All right, then we have a look at the flu or influenza, and that is oftenly mistaken for the common cold. Now, the common cold and the flu are vastly different problems. Okay, unfortunately, in the common non-medical speak, we confuse the two. We all say, oh, I've got flu, but really we've only got a cold. It's just the way that we actually talk and describe things. So cold is basically relatively harmless, while flu can actually lead to complications such as pneumonia and dehydration. So flu is a whole different ball game to a common cold. So how do we distinguish between cold and a flu? And if we have a look at this little boy with a green shirt on, you can see he's just got a snotty nose. He's not looking particularly sick at all. Whereas the other one, these eyes are red. This child is not If you look at into his eyes are telling you, I'm actually sick. So with a common cold, children still have the energy to play. They want to follow their daily routines. It's not slowing them down. Okay, but with the flu, children are usually in bed. They're miserable. They haven't got the energy. They've got a fever. They're coughing. They've got body aches. They're really not happy with life. Okay, now, with infants or children, they can experience nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, loss of appetite, sore throat, extreme tiredness as part of these flu symptoms. So flu is caused by the influenza virus, and the biggest problem is that it can lead to complications like pneumonia, and really pneumonia is an infection in the lungs. It can lead to dehydration, it can lead to ear infections, and it can lead to brain dysfunction, such as encephalopathy. So they actually get a bit of swelling and inflammation around their brain, which really is not nice at all. And so that is why we need to do something when your child actually has the flu. So we've said pneumonia is an illness in which the infant's lungs are infected and inflamed. Okay, ear infections. Now, has my baby just found his ear and is playing with it, or is your baby playing with his ear because it is actually sore? Again, how do we decide whether this baby is sick or not? We don't just look at this ear that is being tugged or rubbed, but we have a look at this baby. Is this baby having a personality change, or is this baby happy and active as normal? And it's very common for children to develop ear infections, okay? And the symptoms for an ear infection, they've got earache, they're fussy, they've got fluid from the ears, they're fever, they've got cold symptoms. Okay, earache in the younger children and babies, you can see this little one. He's playing with his ear, he's pulling, he's tugging it. He's fussy, he's miserable. You look at his eyes, you can see, I'm a very unhappy little chappy, and I've also got trouble sleeping. And it's one of those things when babies have ear infections, that when they lie down to sleep, the pain actually increases because of the change in the pressure with the baby lying down. So how do we prevent any earache from developing? Very important, if you breastfeed your baby, okay, that breast milk is going to help prevent ear infections, which is really, really important. Secondly, we need to make sure that you vaccinate your baby. There are quite a lot of the vaccinations that are going to actually prevent ear infections. And if your baby is a bottle-fed baby, do not prop feed your baby or give your baby a bottle lying flat down. Okay, your baby needs to be semi-upright, otherwise the fluid is very prone to going down the canal into the ear and cause infections. So if this little one has gotten an ear infection or earache, what do? If we let them lie on something warm, like a hot water bottle, okay, that's obviously not hot, okay, but that is just cozy and warm. We don't want anybody getting burnt, but that warmth can actually really, really help relieve some of that pain. If we give it some paracetamol, again, that Panado and Calpol is vital to have in your cupboard, that will actually help treat the pain. And then put your baby at a raised angle while it's sleeping so that the pressure doesn't increase as much as when your baby is flat. So you can elevate your baby's head. Remember, if they're little, you don't want to put pillows in, but you can put a pillow under the mattress to help raise the mattress. Okay, For some of them, you can encourage drinking because actually when they drink and suck, it helps open that eustachian tube, okay, in the ear, which helps drain it better. And then that pressure of the fluid doesn't build up and cause that extreme pain in the ear. Okay, so you need to go to the doctor if you suspect a baby has an ear infection. So how do we know that? They'll be pulling or tugging on the ear, that crying, that irritability. Worse when you put them down to sleep, difficulty sleeping because of that increased pain. They will probably have a fever. There may be fluid draining from the ear. And the little ones can actually have a loss of balance. Okay, if you understand that the balance that one has is actually in the ear itself, okay, that is where the balance actually takes place. So if they have got an infection, it can actually put them off balance. And so they tottering around and teetering around when they should be able to walk. If the ears are really gunged up and blocked, you might find that they have difficulty hearing, or that you call them, you tell them something, and they're actually not responding to your voice. If it doesn't improve to 2 to 3 days, okay, you do need to take this little one off to the doctor to actually just have it checked out. Signs that require immediate attention include high fever, severe pain, blood or pus-like discharge from the ears. You're not then going to wait for the 2 to 3 days. You are going to take your baby to the doctor and get it looked at straight away. Right now, I am going to hand over to Angie Leach. Angie is the head registered dietitian at Future Life, and we're going to hear a little bit and a few minutes from them.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Angela. I'm the head dietitian at Future Life. Good evening, everybody. My name is Angela. I'm the head dietitian at Future Life. I hope that you are enjoying the event, and thank you so much for joining. Today, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Future Life as a company and then introduce you to a few products in our range. Obviously, our range is pretty big and we don't have time for everything, but just talk to you about a few of our products and then introduce you to our website. So here, what is Future Life? Future Life is the leading South African functional food company that aims to truly transform and improve the health and well-being of South Africans. I can testify that that is at the core of everything that we do as a company. We leverage the knowledge, expertise, and experience of a multidisciplinary team of food scientists, medical professionals, and dietitians to create a large range of nutritionally superior smart food products that suit, support, and enhance people's modern lifestyles. Our vision is to change the way people think about nutrition and its role in their lives, and in doing so, inspire and help people to make nutritionally superior changes or choices in their quest for healthier and happier lives. And I think we know, as parents that have had sick children, that healthiness and happiness really do go hand in hand. So at Future Life, we strive to provide smart nutrition for life for every South African. We want to have a product for everyone in the family. The majority of these products you see are already available with our mother's food and our teeny tots still in the pipeline. I've just circled a few products that you might be interested in for your little ones. I'm going to speak about the majority of them shortly. If you have any further questions as we're going along, you can direct them to us via our website or via our social media platform, so I can provide you with more information. Then we also, so that was our cereal range, so our dual pouch range, which is very convenient. We have a range of bars, a collagen range, our beauty and repair food, and then our high protein breads. So the first product what I'll talk to you about is our Future Life Kids cereal, and it's really great for us as moms because it offers parents convenience with a product that's ready to eat that just adds milk, and what you just need to add milk to, and that children love. It's high in fiber and contains probiotics, namely Bacillus coagulans. These specific probiotics can withstand the heat processing the cereal goes through. So where many probiotics would get destroyed in the processing, these maintain the integrity, and therefore obviously can offer the required benefits to your child or to you if you choose to use the cereal. I'm quite a fan myself. And it also is 40% lower in sugar than the leading competitor in the market, as that's December 2020. It's high in 10 vitamins and minerals, including vitamin B6, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin A, and vitamin E, and then iron, iodine, zinc, and selenium. It's also available in 3 flavors. So in the Lenny, the llama vanilla flavor, the Buddy the Bear chocolate flavor, and the Flora the flamingo strawberry flavor. Next, I thought I would show you our new classic whole grain oats. And what's so great about these is we know that as parents, we love to give our children oats often, but we don't always have time. So these classic instant oats are rolled oats that can literally you just add your boiling water, let it stand for a minute, and it can then be consumed. We've also added zinc, copper, and selenium for immune support, and then also Moducare. It's an oat that has got no added sugar, it's high in fiber, and it's high in energy, and endorsed by the Heart and Stroke Foundation. And you can have it in 700-gram bag, or buy it in a 700-gram bag, or in a single serving sachet, which is obviously very convenient. Next up is our Future Life Smart Food. I think that's a product in the range that the majority of you will have either tasted or at least recognize. It's low glycemic index. It's a complete and balanced meal, and what we mean by that is that it provides your carbohydrates, proteins, and fats in the guideline ratios. It's high in 19 vitamins and minerals, high in protein, high in energy, high in dietary fiber, and omega-3. It contains Moducare, it's free from preservatives, tartrazine, and added colorants, and it comes in 4 flavors. So an original, a chocolate, a banana, and a strawberry flavor. And they've just got this really nice visual representation for you of the balance that we're speaking about. So in 150-gram serving of Future Life Smart Food, you'll be getting the protein of 1.5 eggs, the carbohydrates of 1.5 slices of whole wheat bread, the fat equivalent of 1 teaspoon of low-fat margarine, then half of all of your vitamins and minerals, and most minerals that you need for the day, and then Moducare. So a 100-gram serving of Future Life Smart Food contains 100% of your daily requirements for all vitamins and most minerals. So a 50-gram serving would provide you with half of that. Then just a look at our futurelife.com. I think it's so nice to point out the versatility of the products. So the products don't just have to be consumed as cereals. They can be had as smoothies or shakes, the majority of them. And then you can also bake with them. You can make smoothies. You can do these little ice rolls. Like you see here, there's a range of recipes that we've developed and you can find on our website. You can also buy our products directly off our website on futurelife.com, or there's all sorts of deals on there, bundles, special offers. And then if you have any inquiries, you can also direct them directly to us via our website.
Good, and that is wonderful to hear from Angie, and we really appreciate Future Life's participation with us this evening, and hopefully you learned a little bit more about their products. Okay. I just want to answer one question that somebody, that Shani asked, and that was, which product is best to use to determine a fever? It really is in some ways not too important as to the thermometer that you actually use. Okay, a regular mercury thermometer is really accurate and works very well and is reasonably cheap. But equally so, you don't want to use some of those very cheap scan thermometers that they used during COVID that would tell you that your temperature was 35 degrees. If your temperature was 35, you were near dead. But they would write it down and tell you you're fine. Okay, so you need, if you are going to go to a digital thermometer, then use something that is well branded, like your Braun thermoscan, for example, is a really, really good fancy thermometer, but it is accurate. Okay, so hopefully that has helped to answer your question. All right, we then move on to burns. Okay, now I don't know about you, but I am forever burning myself when I am cooking. And it really is very, very important to know what to do and to do it really, really quickly. And that is, you need to stop the burn from continuing. And whatever you have burnt is put that area under cool running water. Never apply ice, because ice will just further damage that area. And don't apply any strange things like butter or honey or things like that that people do, because that can actually also let the burn continue burning underneath whatever you put on. So you need to actually put it under cool running water or in a bowl. You know, if it's your finger that you've burnt, then put it in a bowl of cool water and leave it there. Don't just put it under for 30 seconds and say, oh, well, I've done it. Because the deeper the burn, the longer the burn actually continues. And so if you keep it under cool water, the burn will actually then stop. The only thing that you should ever put on a burn is something called Burn Shield. And Burn Shield actually has burn dressings as well as a burn solution. And it really is phenomenal. And nobody is paying me to say this. I know from the hard realities of always burning myself in the kitchen. And it is amazing what this Burn Shield actually does. If you have a look in this large pouch, it's called hydrogel, and it is like the Panado or the Calpol that you're going to have in your cupboard. You are going to have some hydrogel lotion or hydrogel dressing, so that if anybody gets burnt, okay, you can put it on immediately and the burn stops, and the scarring is minimal. And so that is something that is definitely should be in everybody's first aid kit, in their cupboard, in their kitchen, without a doubt. Okay, so hopefully that has given you the best idea of what to do with burns, that just to put it under cool water and continue. And if it is a bigger area, you know, jump in the swimming pool, jump in the bath, okay, but actually keep that burn under water. And it will also stop the pain, because it's the air that actually dries the area that causes the pain. So if you put this cool running water on, it'll stop the pain as well. All right, we then come to common childhood illnesses. Okay, we've talked about the common colds and flu and ear infections, but there are things like chickenpox and measles and mumps. And thank goodness these days we don't often see the little ones with these actual diseases, because they actually have got immunizations against it to help prevent these little ones getting sick. You can, on the internet, get the vaccination schedule for South Africa. This one's the 2021 one, and it'll actually tell you at what age what immunization should actually be given, and it gives you the there are different options, different vaccinations that are I suppose in competition, for want of a better thing, that you can decide which one you want. But these vaccinations are absolutely important, they are essential, and it is very important to give these vaccinations for these diseases at the correct time, at the correct intervals, to actually make sure that your child is prevented from some of these really, really terrible diseases that we don't see so often, and so we don't think they are so important. Whereas a few years ago, okay, they were life-threatening diseases to our children. Okay, and then you always get somebody who says, oh yes, but it's, you know, better to get the natural disease, and they get good resistance to it, and that's fine. Some of these diseases are really got some nasty complications. You really do not want to expose your children to them. They really have nasty things, and it is much safer for the children to have their vaccinations. And we'll just go through a couple of those examples so that you can understand that the risks of getting the natural diseases are a lot worse and higher complications than the risks of having the vaccination. So, for example, if a child gets measles, okay, 1 in 20 of them will develop pneumonia. Pneumonia is not a nice disease, and particularly in little ones, okay, where their air pipes are actually really, really small. It doesn't take very much to actually block them and for a child to be really, really critically ill with pneumonia. So 1 in 20 will get pneumonia, 1 in 10 will get an ear infection, 1 in 2,000 will get encephalitis, which is an infection and inflammation of the brain, and 1 in 3,000 will actually die. So measles is really not a nice disease. If we have a look at mumps, okay, the complications of mumps, 1 in 3,000 will get that encephalitis, that infection around the brain. 0.5 to 5 per 100,000 will actually land up deaf from mumps, and 30 to 40% of adult men will have orchitis, which is inflammation of the testes, and I can assure you no adult wants to experience that. The pain is really, really intense. Rubella, or more commonly known as German measles, okay, and that has serious complications in the first trimester of your pregnancy if you pick it up, and you then can give a baby congenital rubella syndrome, which occurs in 60 to 80%. The risk of having the MMR vaccine, which is your measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, 1 in 1 million will get encephalitis. Okay, and if we go back, we said that mumps, 1 in 3,000 will get it. In measles, 1 in 2,000 will get it. And we are saying 1 in 1 million will get it, or a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine. So you can hopefully see the numbers for yourself, and they're self-explanatory. It's very common to have mild side effects from the vaccine. So you have soreness at the injection site, mild joint pain, a slight rash with some of these things. And these things only occur in less than 5% of the babies that get them. So you can see it's much better idea to have your baby get the MMR vaccines. Chickenpox and measles are viral infections that result in skin rashes. Chickenpox is a mildly infectious disease caused by the varicella zoster virus, and most children catch it at some stage during their childhood unless they actually have had the vaccination. Chickenpox is characterized by red fluid-filled blisters. The spots first appear on the chest, the back, the head, or the neck, and from there they spread, and they can spread dramatically. It lasts about 10 days and is generally accompanied by a fever. Measles is considered one of the most contagious communicable diseases. In fact, it needs to be notified if somebody actually has measles here these days, okay, because they don't want measles outbreaks, because measles is such a miserable disease to get. They have runny nose, a cough, a fever, watery inflamed eyes, small red spots in the mouth, and dusky red blotchy rashes on the face and the body. And measles is much more serious than chickenpox. So it's not just the fact actually you feel miserable, but it actually has all those complications related to having it. So I hope from day one you get your baby vaccinated with the correct vaccinations. All right, we then come to vomiting, okay? So we need to know the difference between spitting up or pusseting, which some people call vomiting, then proper vomiting, and the third one, the vomiting. Okay, so let's have a look at the difference. Pusseting is really bringing up a small amount of milk after the feeds when you generally winding your baby. They come up and they have a mouthful of milk and it comes just spewing out of their mouth. It's a spit up on the bib and it's completely normal. It's just messy and inconvenient. Vomiting, okay, in the middle picture, it's a more forceful explosion of milk from the mouth, and babies can vomit once a day after feeds, and this is absolutely normal. Okay, particularly if there's a big wind and there's a lot of milk on top of it, and as the wind comes up, so a whole lot of milk comes up, or the little closure at the top of their stomach, the bottom of their esophagus, just doesn't seal nicely. You move them a bit and the whole feed comes bubbling out. Okay, if your baby is happy and feeding well and putting on weight, it is not a problem at all. Just remember that instead of your baby waking up again in another 4 hours or so for a feed, he's going to be hungry earlier. And so maybe after 2 hours, he's going to be saying, please feed me. And just remember, he did vomit up his feed earlier. Not a problem. And just feed him, as I say, sooner. We then have physiological reflux. And this vomiting occurs frequently during the day after feeds and up to an hour or so after a feed. Again, this baby will be a happy baby. He'll be putting on weight. He'll be feeding well. And again, this is more of a nuisance value, as baby will be vomiting a lot, stinking of vomit, but will be in good health. And again, it is not a problem. You then have your pathological reflux. This is excessive vomiting, irritable crying, and a baby who is not gaining weight. And that baby definitely needs treatment to help stop the vomiting, okay, and sort out the reflux. But this middle baby doesn't need to be sorted out, okay. He is a happy baby. He's just spewing a bit more than the average baby. Okay, so key things to remember if your baby is vomiting. If you are breastfeeding, continue breastfeeding no matter what. Okay, the theory behind vomiting and replacing fluids, we want to get more fluids in than the fluid coming out, because the biggest problem with vomiting is dehydration. Okay, and the way that we know if your baby's heading towards dehydration is this baby weeing at all. No fluid in, no fluid out, or too much fluid coming out, not enough going in, and baby's not weeing. Okay, so always continue breastfeeding, even if your baby is vomiting, and as soon as they settle again, you continue breastfeeding. Breast milk is the most amazing healer, it's the most amazing medicine, and never stop breastfeeding when your baby's sick. If your baby is vomiting and he's a little bit more sick, it's not just, you know, a posset or a once-off vomit. It is really, really important that we get fluid of some sort into your baby, okay? And give small quantities, okay? Let your baby, you know, have a mouthful and wait a minute or two, and then have another mouthful and wait a minute or two. It's very, very tedious, but that way a lot more fluid stays in. If you give your baby a whole bottle, you know, of water to drink, it goes glug, 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 and in a couple of minutes out, it will come spewing, and we haven't made progress then at all. Okay, so how do I tell if my baby is heading towards dehydration, since that is the biggest problem when a baby is vomiting? If you look at its mouth, okay, its tongue is dry, the lips are dry. If that baby's crying, there's not going to be any tears. It's just going to cry and cry, but there are going to be no tears because there's no liquid left for tears to be formed. If your baby is having fewer than 6 wet nappies per day, okay, we need to know, is this baby weeing nicely? If that baby's got, is little and they've got those soft spots, those fontanelles, and it's dipping, okay, a sunken fontanelle showing that that baby is getting dehydrated. Their eyes are actually sunken into their head more than it should be. If their skin feels dry and wrinkled, and by the time they're really dehydrated, they're deeply, rapidly breathing, okay? But hopefully you've picked that up long before that baby isn't breathing nicely. Again, a symptom that is down the line is that it has reduced skin elasticity. What gives the skin the elasticity, if you go like that, okay, if this baby is dehydrated and you let it go, okay, the skin is going to stay in the same place instead of actually disappearing with that elasticity. And also, again, that favorite question of mine, has my baby had a personality change, or is my baby the same happy, smiley baby? So it's very important if this baby is vomiting. So it's not just vomited once and it's an issue and it's finished, but this baby's vomiting, and a bit later it vomits some more, and a bit later it vomits some more. We need to replace what that baby is vomiting. And when a baby vomits, it's not just water that that baby is coming out, but actually the sugars and salts in the stomach are also coming out. And so it's very, very important to actually use what we call replacement fluid. So you can buy little sachets of oral rehydrate and things like that, that you can just add to water, and it contains the sugar and salt. Or a very, very quick and easy way is that you actually have a liter of pre-boiled water that you've cooled down. To that you add 6 level teaspoons of sugar and a teaspoon of salt, and you actually mix that all up, and you actually give this to your baby or whoever's vomiting, because if it's an adult that's also vomiting, the same solution applies, and the same theory applies as well, that we actually sip by sip, we are going to replace that all that fluid that that baby is losing by vomiting. Okay, and always remember that although when that baby vomits, it's going to look as though actually everything that you have given this baby is coming up, there is always some fluid that is going to stay behind in the stomach. And so that is why, little by little, sip by sip, we are going to actually keep that baby well hydrated. And if we just do this, there will be very few babies and adults that actually need to be admitted for dehydration to do with vomiting and diarrhea. Okay, so this is something, remember it, put it up on your fridge, 6 level teaspoons of sugar, a half a teaspoon of salt in a liter of clean drinking or pre-boiled water. Okay, and sip by sip, you can actually get this little one to rehydrate. If we've given this baby some medication and it starts vomiting and immediately after giving the medication, okay, what you can then do is that you can give another dose of that a full dose of that medication, because most of it would have come back. Okay, if it's that baby vomits half an hour after the medication, you are not going to give any more medication. You will leave it. Otherwise, we don't want to overdose this baby with any medication that we are giving it. So when should I call the doctor? So you need to call the doctor if your child hasn't had anything to drink for several hours. Okay, if there are signs of dehydration, it's not weeing, it's crying with no tears, dry mouth, cracked lips, feeling dizzy or lightheaded, acting very sleepy, less alert. Okay, those are bad signs of dehydration. Okay, hopefully we're going to remember that from the first time that baby's vomited, we're going to offer those sips of water with that sugar and salt added to it. We're going to call the doctor if it's got a very high fever and vomiting, if it's vomiting blood or has green or brownish vomit, if it has severe stomach or back pain, if it has a headache or a stiff neck. Okay, so we're all able to put our heads back and forward without any problem. And if this baby's got a stiff neck, they're not able to bring it all the way down like your chin to the chest. And that is a very severe sign, and very important that you take that baby straight away to be looked at. If this baby is vomiting after a head injury, we'll be looking at babies that fall off counters and beds. Okay, and if vomiting occurs after this baby banged his head very severely, you should see the doctor. And if there's vomiting for more than 24 hours. Okay, people, I hope you are learning and finding this interesting. Nicole's asking, what is the best medication for vomiting? Okay, I would try and keep rehydrating and see if this baby actually doesn't stop vomiting on its own. If this baby, you know, if it vomits a few times, it really isn't too dire at all. And if you need to give medication, it's a good idea to go if your little one is very little, because the medications that stop them vomiting are actually quite dire and work on the brain. And so it's better not to give too much medication to try and stop the vomiting, rather see what is the cause and actually treat the vomiting from the point of view. The vomiting leads to dehydration, and actually treat that, and the vomiting will probably stop of its own accord quite soon. If it doesn't, then take your baby to the doctor. Okay, safer sleep. Okay, babies sleep during those first few months of their lives, so it's important to ensure they are sleeping as safely as possible. And this is information from the Lullaby Trust, and you can check them out at lullabytrust.org.za, and they specialize in safe sleeping and decreasing the risk for sudden infant death syndrome. Now, sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS, is the sudden unexplained death of a baby under 1 year of age when there's no cause to be found. Now, nobody knows what is the cause of SIDS, but certainly they know that there are things that actually increase the risk or decrease the risk of SIDS happening. And SIDS can happen at any time, not just at night. So the advice should be followed for all sleep times, both day and night. Now, first of all, we need to understand the difference between suffocation and SIDS. If we look at the baby on the right that is sleeping on its tummy with a nice furry, on a furry blanket, okay, or a pillow in the cot, that baby can suffocate where it blocks the air to the nose and this baby cannot breathe. Okay, that is suffocation, and that is vastly different to SIDS. SIDS is, there is no explanation as to why this baby has actually died. So the recommendation is that all babies are always put on their backs to sleep. Okay, the risk of SIDS is hugely reduced if babies are placed on the back to sleep and not on their front or their side, particularly on their tummy. Okay, you don't want a baby to sleep on their tummy. However, it's very important that babies play on their tummy, okay, when they are awake. But do not put your baby to sleep on their tummy, and also do not wrap the babies in such a way on their back that their hands actually aren't exposed, that they can actually maneuver themselves around as well. Okay, keep your baby smoke-free during pregnancy and after birth. Smoking during and after pregnancy actually increases the risk of SIDS. So during pregnancy, the number of cigarettes smoked is highly associated with risk. Therefore, the more cigarettes smoked, the higher the risk of SIDS. The scientific evidence shows that around 30% of SIDS could be avoided if mothers didn't smoke when they were pregnant. And taken together with the risks of smoking around a baby at home, this means that smoking could be linked to 60% of sudden infant deaths. And if you smoke 1 to 9 cigarettes a day during pregnancy, you're more than 4 times as likely to have a baby die as a SIDS than a woman who didn't smoke at all during pregnancy. While smoking more than 20 cigarettes per day can increase the chance by nearly 9 times. Passive smoking also significantly increases the risk of SIDS, and the risk increases further when both parents smoke. So really try to stop smoking altogether or decrease your smoking as much as possible. And once you've had your baby, keep your baby in a smoke-free environment. Have your baby in your room to sleep. The safest place for your baby to sleep night and day is in a crib or cot in the room with you for the first 6 months. Remember, preferably your baby should be skin to skin for the first 3 to 4 months, but have your baby with you for at least 6 months. And it just helps regulate your baby's breathing and prevents your baby going into a very, very deep sleep that it might stop breathing. Okay, by having your baby in the same room as you, your bed creaks, you or your partner snores, you know, you turn over, those sort of things actually keep baby at a safe level of sleeping. Breastfed babies have a low risk of SIDS, so try and breastfeed as much as you can. Obviously, exclusive breastfeeding, where your baby only gets breast milk, is associated with the lowest risk, but breastfeeding of any duration may be beneficial for lowering the chance of SIDS compared to formula feeding alone. Avoid letting your baby get too hot. So the optimum room temperature that your baby should be in is 16 to 20 degrees, which is actually quite a cool temperature. Okay, and that should be combined with light bedding or a well-fitting sleeping bag. You can see the SIDS Foundation, okay, it's much better to actually have your baby in a sleeping bag that's fitted, and it also cuts down on any chance of suffocation or babies crawling under duvets or blankets that actually don't fit, because as babies grow, they don't lie still. And so this way, your baby's head can't become covered with blankets and this baby can't overheat. Never have a pillow in the cot at all from a suffocation point of view, and put your baby to sleep on a firm mattress and not a soft mattress or a sofa. And don't let baby be able to wriggle under the bedding. So that is why your sleeping bag is an ideal option. Using a dummy, okay, as far as SIDS go, it is advantageous for a baby to have a dummy, but equally so, if you don't want one, that is okay. And if you are wanting to breastfeed, try and get breastfeeding established before you give a baby a dummy. Okay, take your baby to the doctor if he has the following: a very high fever that is not responding to treatment, severe headache associated with that neck stiffness we spoke about. If that baby's confused, photophobic, okay, so your baby doesn't like these bright lights, suddenly their eyes are very, very sensitive to light. They're extremely sleepy all the time. They kind of never wake up out of that sleepiness, perhaps seizures. And if you are anxious about your baby's condition, okay, the worst thing that your doctor can say is actually, oh, don't be so anxious, and your baby is fine, go home. Okay, that's far better than saying, actually, I was feeling really anxious about my baby, but I didn't want to overreact. Okay, so listen to your gut. Your gut instinct is there to help you navigate through this process of actually, how sick is my baby, and should I be doing something more because this baby is sick. Okay, my baby fell off the bed, off the counter, off the change area. Oh, goodness me, my baby will never, that will never happen to my baby. Okay, unfortunately, the height from which a baby falls is correlated to the severity of injury. So if your baby fell from a very high distance, okay, from a crib or countertop, they're obviously at a greater risk of serious injury. Okay, the first thing is don't panic. Hopefully you will hear the best sound ever, and that is your baby crying. And this beautiful sound of crying when your baby's just fallen, yes, is a very, very reassuring sound, because it tells you your baby is still alive, okay, which is really important. But we don't want to panic. You don't want to frighten and scare your baby any more than they have already. They've got a fright, they've had a fall, and if you panic and fuss, this will scare them more because they learn to mirror you. So if you are panicking and screaming and performing, they think that is the appropriate response. Instead, rather stay cool and calm and collected and to actually get a true assessment of whether your baby is hurt or not just that your baby is mirroring your panic and fuss. Okay, how and when to watch and wait. Okay, in most cases, watch and wait with lots of extra TLC, tender loving care, is the most appropriate course of action after a baby's minor head bump. One needs to realize the symptoms of a more serious head injury is possible. Watch for any changes in behavior, this neurological deficits within 48 hours of the accident, that changes in behavior. If you have actually generally got a peace-loving, quiet, calm, collected baby, and this kitty suddenly becomes really, really aggressive, that is showing you change in behavior, probably neurological changes, and go and have it seen to. Other ways to care for your little one, okay, during this wait and watch period, depending on where the bump is or where they've got hurt, apply an ice pack, okay? It really does help. It takes away some of the pain. It takes away, some of the swelling. If they have got cut, okay, then clean and bandage it. Kiss it better with a Band-Aid type of thing. And check for changes and consistency in the child, in the size of the baby's pupils. Okay, your pupils in your eyes, the dark part, okay, when you come into bright light, the pupils go small, and when you go into dark room, your pupils go big in order to see better, and they are always reacting equally, so the left and the right do the same. If you ever see one eye dilating and getting bigger and the one is really, really small, that is actually serious and extreme, and take your child immediately to the hospital. Thank goodness we don't see that very often, and thank goodness most falls, okay, are relatively minor. We need to monitor your baby while they're sleeping during the naps and at night after they have had banged their head. If there are signs of distress, trying to remain calm and making them easier to address. It's possible the fall could cause your baby to lose consciousness. They may appear limp or sleeping. Then they usually resume consciousness rather quickly. But regardless, you need to have them checked out if they have lost consciousness. After a bump to the head, baby can experience a headache and discomfort, but when they're small, it's very difficult for them to tell you that. Okay, so you might see that there's increased fussiness, there's difficulty in sleeping, and no harm in giving a dose of paracetamol. So concussions are the most common and least severe type of traumatic brain injury. And a concussion can affect multiple brain regions, causing problems in brain function. So your signs of concussion are headache, loss of consciousness, changes in alertness, nausea, and vomiting. So if they've just banged their head and they start violently vomiting, you need to go and have it checked out. If they change in alert status, okay, you need to go and check it out. But remember that if they are due to go to sleep and they want to go to sleep, that is actually also normal, and it is fine for you to let this baby go to sleep. Just keep watching that baby and monitoring it. Okay, so if your baby is showing any of these symptoms, after experiencing an injury to the head, call 911, take them to the nearest emergency room. If there's inconsolable crying, and it's not the fact that they are mirroring your inconsolable crying, okay, the fact you are staying calm and collected and they are inconsolably crying. If there's uncontrolled bleeding from a cut, a dent or bulging soft spot on the skull, excessive bruising and or swelling, if they vomit more than once, if there's unusual sleepiness and or difficulty staying alert, loss of consciousness, blood or fluid draining from the nose or ears, they become sensitive to light, they have a seizure, they have trouble breathing, or basically your baby is acting out of the ordinary. This baby has had a personality change. We are then going to go and get this baby seen to immediately. Okay, but remember, you know, you hear people say, oh, my baby, you know, had bumped its head, now I must keep this baby awake. If this baby is really, really tired and it's, you know, it's had a fright and it's, you know, even more tired, it is fine to let this baby go to sleep and just watch to make sure that there aren't any other signs of any problems. Okay, particularly is he behaving differently, our change of personality. I think we'll end here with the cuts and stitches, since it's on the same line, and then we will close for the evening and see if there are any questions that need answering. So as far as cuts and stitches go, if it's still bleeding after 5 minutes, it probably needs stitches. If the cut is more than just over 1 centimeter deep or longer, if the cut is around the eyes, if it's on the face or the neck, and if it's deep enough that it's involving fatty tissue, muscle or bone. So if we look at this bottom picture very, very nicely, we can see, yes, it is a small cut, it isn't huge, but it is a gaping wound and it's on the face. And so that little one, if that cut isn't stitched, will remain quite a dramatic scar. And so it's a lot better to actually go and have it stitched really, really nicely and sorted out. Okay. I will just mention the poisoning. There is a poison information helpline. It is to do with the hospital in Cape Town. My mind's gone blank. Okay, 0861 555 777. And if you go to www.sun.ac.za/poison center, you will get a chart and it will tell you what to do. So do make them vomit, don't make them vomit, get to the hospital, etc. It really is a very good idea to have a poison chart around. You cannot believe what toddlers can get hold of, and it is really good to have it easily accessible so you know exactly what to do and how quickly you need to get to the hospital, but what you can do in the meantime. So that is something that is very, very helpful to actually have. Okay, it's also very, very good to go to a class of CPR and first aid training. That can certainly save your little ones or somebody else's little one's life. So that is worthwhile following up. Good idea even while you're pregnant. So should anything happen, you know that actually you are giving your baby the best possible opportunity to get it sorted out. Okay, people, if you could fill out the feedback.